Hi, it's T. Carlson here, and today we go back into the comedy of the early 2000s. There was a time period from like the mid-90s to the early 2000s or so where Adam Sandler was pretty much the biggest star in the world. His movies always got a mixed critical reception, but they were a massive hit with audiences who all wanted more and went to the theaters in droves. In the fall of 2000, we got this movie, Little Nicky. And people have been wondering when this was finally going to get a Blu-ray release, and thanks to Scream Factory, it's finally arrived. I'm going to unbox this release and share my opinion. Nice cover art there. Here's our back cover. Here's our disc of the film, and Scream Factory even gave us a backdrop of artwork there, so that looks very nice. I get so sick of just seeing all those plain white covers in a transparent case, so it seems kind of pointless. I'll read the description of the film for those of you who aren't familiar with the movie. When your mother is an angel and your father is the devil, life can be really confusing. For Little Nicky, it just got a whole lot worse. His two evil brothers have just escaped from hell and are wreaking havoc on an unsuspecting earth. His dad is disintegrating, and it's up to Nicky to save him and all of humanity. Can Nicky find his inner evil in time to save the world? With amazing special effects, a hot heavy metal soundtrack, and a star-studded cast including Patricia Arquette, John Lovitz, Rodney Dangerfield, and many more, Little Nicky raises hell, and it has never been so much fun. When this movie came out, I think I was like 16 years old and a junior in high school, and I remember me and my best friend went to the theater and saw it. I mean, this looked like a very interesting movie. I mean, you had the humor of Adam Sandler, a heavy metal soundtrack, cinematic depictions of hell, an all-star cast with plenty of interesting cameos. Certainly sounded like my kind of movie. And while I will admit Little Nicky is certainly no cinematic masterpiece, it's unabashedly juvenile at times and pretty much in many ways the stereotypical Adam Sandler movie, there are a lot of things that do make this one at least slightly a cut above the rest, including the soundtrack, the cast, the cameos, and the absolutely absurd premise and the execution of said premise. Sandler's played a lot of interesting characters before. A man-child going back to elementary school, a professional golfer, a man who becomes a parent of sorts, an heir to a fortune. The list goes on. Sandler's always taken on very eccentric roles, but he always pours his heart and soul into them, and even if critics aren't always the biggest fans, audiences most definitely are. Little Nicky, of course, didn't really do a whole lot at its time of release. I don't know if that was just because of, the fact that the movie revolves around hell and demons, or the fact that it just couldn't quite find its niche audience. But the fact of the matter is, even if it's no masterpiece, this is one of my favorites in Sandler's catalog. Anytime you have hell on the big screen, a heavy metal soundtrack, and plenty of humor, I'm certainly game. Seeing Nicky go to New York City to take on his brothers so that he can save his father and restore the balance of heaven, hell, and earth, it's as absurd as it sounds. Seeing his brothers take over people and possess them and send the city of New York into complete chaos, some of this stuff has to be seen to be believed. The celebrity cameos, usually I'm not huge on those because they're just very gimmicky, but here they're actually used to their fullest comic effect. I mean, we have comedian George Wallace playing the governor of New York, who's possessed into making some very strange edicts. We see Regis Philbin on TV as one of the people that they take over, seeing him shout out the most uncharacteristic words he's probably said in his entire life. Quentin Tarantino as a blind preacher who truly believes that hell has come to earth, whose predictions might be right, as the premise of the film may have dictated. The list goes on. And you even got a great cast that includes the likes of Patricia Arquette as Nicky's love interest, Harvey Keitel as Satan, his father, and then you have the former devil, Lucifer, his grandfather, who's portrayed by Rodney Dangerfield in one of his last feature film roles. I mean, what is there I can say that hasn't already been said? You really have to see this one to appreciate it. The premise is about as goofy as you can imagine, but it does look like a big budget really went into this thing, and it was certainly a labor of love for all involved. As far as the Adam Sandler filmography goes, I think Little Nicky's always been a sorely underrated and overlooked entry. So I have to say, don't overlook this one, especially if you're a fan of comedy, you're a fan of heavy metal, you're a fan of Adam Sandler, you're a fan of depictions of hell on the big screen. This movie pulls them all off very nicely. Little Nicky arrives on Blu-ray for the first time, courtesy of Scream Factory. I was kind of hoping we'd get an actual 4K of this, but I'm happy just to get this in high def. It does look very good throughout. It says that this was actually a new scan that was done. I suspect with some of the scenes there may have been some light noise reduction used. Some of these special effects, the CG work and model work and so forth, look very dated by today's standards, and understandably that is going to affect the way the transfer looks. But overall, I do have to say, this is a very good looking version of the film. I do think fans of the movie will be impressed with what they find. I don't believe there's any new bonus features on here, but we do get a nice assortment of archival stuff, including commentary tracks, a featurette on the heavy metal soundtrack, as well as some deleted and extended scenes. So I do think fans of Little Nicky will be happy with what they get here. If you are a fan of this movie, or maybe you're just curious and want to check it out, I am happy to report that Scream Factory's Blu-ray disc of the movie certainly gets the job done. It is an underrated entry in the Adam Sandler canon, and one I was very happy to add to my collection. Are you a fan of Little Nicky? Where would you rank this in Adam Sandler's filmography? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, remember to subscribe to this channel for more content. I'm always posting new videos, and make sure you give this one a like if you found it helpful. I'm Taylor T. Carlson. I'll see you next time.